Well, good evening, and a big welcome to you. So let's begin with just a gentle invocation. I'm going to invite us to shut down our eyes. And we're calling upon the grace of God, our guardian angels, all the angels in heaven, all the great masters, the dakinis, the ascended masters, all the great ones. We call upon you to come down here into our minds, into our hearts, and to awaken us. Clear out any darkness and confusion. Help us to heal and to let go and release. And let us together profess that our minds are clear and awake. Our hearts are open. And it is our intention, our highest intention, to wake up to our true divine nature. And inviting God's grace to flow through us, through our divinity, and out to this world, blessing all of God's creation. And with that, we will release our prayer at the feet of the Divine Mother. And let us continue to breathe and to soften. And I invite you to invoke a devotional attitude, a devotional feeling toward the quiet innocence of your own heart. And so we are coming into contact with the heart. And then choosing to open here. With a great sense of humility and innocence. We are reconnecting, realigning to that which is good and true and beautiful. About your nature. And so breathing in and breathing out. And letting go. Letting go of all of that which is old or dead or past. Letting go of all that which is confused and suffering. And feeling this depth of innocence, this gentle, innate goodness. As we breathe, as we feel, as we soften. Again, gently scanning the body for that which is false. That which is tight or tense. And we are releasing. Releasing, releasing, releasing. Opening into this quiet presence of silence, of stillness, and saying yes, a deep yes to the immensity of this moment, a deep yes to letting go of all that which is false, and so we release the past. Arriving here in this space of gentle radiance. As we breathe, as we feel, as we open, I invite you again just to scan the body and see if there's anywhere in the body where you are saying no to life, no to this moment, no to difficulty, no to suffering. And in this space of meditation, I invite us just to play with an attitude of openness. Just gently asking, what is life like? When I put down any story of the mind, any argument with what is, and we choose openness. Openness is the fundamental nature of the heart. Openness has no walls, no boundaries. Openness does not have an age. It doesn't have a form. It's not conditioned by the past. And so we are experiencing this sense of openness. Openness in the front, the chest, openness in the back, openness to the grace of God. openness to the depth of the earth. And breathing in and breathing out. And feeling directly. This immense silence. This quiet stillness. This gentle innocence and purity of the heart. And so together, as we join in this space of Satsang, we are waking up to what we are. We are remembering, acknowledging that there is something here so precious, so empty and yet profoundly loving and compassionate. Right here is the very fabric of our nature. And so before we open our eyes, I'm going to invite us just to feel into this question. I have a little spiritual inquiry here. And it's an invitation just to gently scan the last couple days of your life. And I invite you to look at what assumptions have you had about life. It can be broad assumptions like life is good or life is not good, life is fair, life is unfair, life should be fair. Life is difficult, life's not for me. But I want you to look at, notice what assumptions that you have. I invite you to notice how these assumptions veil. They cover up reality. How they clog your mind. How they close the heart. And so many of us have assumptions about our friends, our family, about the greater world at large. It's hard not to turn on the news and not just have a whole array of assumptions. Or be with our family and not have a whole array of assumptions. And I invite you just to ask, are these assumptions true? Am I willing to humbly look, to inquire, and to see if what I presume is actually true? Is it helpful? Even the word presumption, it points to the fact that we are not in reality. For when we are open, we see that every moment of reality is fresh, is new. Every moment is both being reborn and dying, all simultaneously. And when we live in a world of assumptions, when we live in a world of presumptions, we're not living in reality. And so let us breathe, let us feel, let us soften, and let us actively choose to drop any and all assumptions, any and all presumptions. And again, to notice, what is life like? What is our direct experience like? When we let go of our assumptions, our judgments, our thoughts of how we think the world should be. And so with that, let us gently open our eyes. And I'd like to just share something. This is from a great Zen master. He's referred to as the third patriarch. He's a Chan master, excuse me. And his name is Sen Chan. And this is what he realized a long, long time ago. To set up what you like against what you dislike is a disease of the mind. To set up what you like against what you dislike is a disease of the mind. And this is something that our human mind, it does all day long. And so, it's not really a disease. I would call it a program of the mind. But it's a program that creates so much trouble, so much suffering. And in the world of Zen, another word, for this teaching is having a sense of equanimity. Equanimity is this skill, this ability, this perspective of looking out at life and simply seeing it. Seeing it as it is, without judgment, without just constantly, habitually, even neurotically saying, oh yes, I agree, this is good. Or no, I disagree. I have a little girl in my house, and there's just something about her where she wants to disagree with everything. And it's an interesting experience, just to live with someone who just is always arguing. fighting against. And there's some people who, like I'm on the other end of the spectrum, I tend to just agree. Just agree. But if we want to be free, we don't agree from a place of pleasing. We don't disagree from a place of habitually arguing or fighting against. You see different archetypal structures, like the critic, the rebel, the judge. They'll just argue with anything. The lawyer, and they just love arguing. They see it as like a form of engagement, a form of engagement. And it's a funny thing, and like often, if you get to know someone who's a big arguer, you'll see they just want some contact with you. They want to talk. They want to engage. And it helps them to feel alive. But today, we're not talking about that. We're talking about having a sense of equanimity and beginning just to wonder, being curious about, well, what would my life be like, my experience be like, if I did not argue with my husband, my wife, my sister, my brother, my friends? What if I didn't make everybody around me wrong? One of the most difficult things about working in the world of therapy is, people will come in, to your office, or in the modern age, they come onto your screen, your Zoom screen, and they'll tell you everything that's wrong. And part of the job of the therapist is to validate that. But another job, the therapist or the spiritual teacher, the awakened one, just is to ask, is it true what you're saying? Is it true what you're thinking? We all love it when people just validate us. But it's a great question to ask. It's is this thing true? This fixation of mind that I have. Is it true? Or is this an assumption that I have? When I was young, I had this assumption that life should be fair. Life should be fair. Nothing wrong with that assumption, but besides the fact that it's not true. It's just not true. Life is not fair. And when difficulty comes our way, often we think that this shouldn't be happening. Sometimes when difficulty comes our way, we assume that we are doing something wrong. We assume that God is punishing us. Or we assume that the other person is wrong. I had this funny experience once upon a time. It was absolutely hilarious for me, but my mother came out to visit a long, long time ago. And, she saw someone walking their dog through my front yard. And she said, "Oh, the dog's out there making a mess in your yard." And the people just walked away. And so I opened the door and I yelled out, "Hey, don't worry about it. I'll pick it up." I'll pick up the mess. And, I went out in the yard and I looked around and I couldn't find it. Couldn't find the mess that the dog made. It's where's that mess at? And my mom, she was inside and I was talking to her through the window. I'm like, "Mom, are you sure the dog?" And she's like, oh yeah, the dog made a mess." And so she came out and she's looking around, and pointing and looking around. And then by this time, the person with the dog is yelling at me, my dog didn't make the mess, and then they're ready to throw down and get this big fight with me. And I'm looking around and I'm looking at my mom and I'm looking at her eyes and I'm like, Mom, when's the last time you had your eyes checked? And so sometimes we have the blind leading the blind. Sometimes one person is confused and it creates confusion for others. It's amazing how much confusion we can all make. Amazing. As we make these assumptions, we think we see something. If any of you saw my favorite TV show, Seinfeld, once George Costanza, he lost his glasses. I think he left them at the pool or something out in the Hamptons, and they were driving back to the city. And as they were driving down the road, George was just spotting all these raccoons on the side of the road, and he was yelling out to Jerry, watch out for the raccoons. And so Jerry kept slamming on the brakes, and after a while, Jerry realized that George was seeing mailboxes. Every time he saw a mailbox, he was calling it a raccoon. And if you live long enough here on planet Earth, if you've been human long enough, we're either going to do one of two things. We're going to shut down and become jaded, or we're going to open our heart and we're going to laugh and we're going to smile, we're going to joke about the silliness, the fallibility of being human, the confusion of being human, just the disaster of having a human mind. And so the invitation here this evening is, can we look out at life from this space of openness, without judging, without attacking the neighbors, without rushing and saying, this thing is wrong or this thing is right. Can we give it a little time and allow reality to teach us what the truth is? What the actual truth is here. But so many of us in the modern age, we just jump to a quick assumption. And if we look at our assumptions, if we look at our conclusions, it's a great question to ask. It's like, where did these come from? Because so often we take our assumptions so personally. We're ready to go to war for them. And it's a great question. Like, is this my truth? Is this a truth that I got from the nightly news or from social media? Is this a truth I got from my tribe? Where does this truth come from? And when you begin to discover its origins, oftentimes you'll discover, oh, this is not the truth. This is not the truth. But not many people are willing to admit that they're wrong. Everyone's willing to admit, I'm right. I'm right. I'm right. I know the way. I'm right. And oftentimes our mind, of course, it doesn't say this out loud, but you'll feel it, in the mind. The more and more your mind grasps at being right, the more and more tension you'll have in your forehead. You'll find like there's this pressure building and a tension where it's holding, it's grasping on to some ideology, some dogma, some worldview. I saw this thing earlier today. It was from Tucker Carlson. I've come to actually really like Tucker Carlson. In the olden days, he used to beat, the drums of war. And when he did that, I hated him. I was just like, I can't stand listening to this guy come up with an argument of, supporting George Bush 1 or 2 or whoever it was. And in the last, couple years, I see him thinking for himself. Of course, he's no longer aligned with Fox News. And so he has the freedom to think for himself. He has the freedom to disagree, with his political party. When I say his political party, I just assume he's voted right, forever. I'll just make that as an assumption. But it's nice to see him think for himself and for him to disagree. And he was disagreeing with, this invasion of Venezuela. He's disagreeing with all the Christians who beat the drums of war. And again, I'm not doing anything political here. I'm not for or against, whatever's happening in Venezuela. I haven't followed it, so I don't know. But it takes great courage for one to step out of their tribe and to disagree. It takes great courage for one just even just look and see, like, where do all my beliefs come from? Where do these assumptions come from? And we might just have an assumption about my boyfriend should treat me better. My boyfriend should do the dishes. He should clean up after himself. My girlfriend, she should talk less. My mother should talk less. My neighbor should talk less. Everyone has all these ideas about everyone else. And it takes great courage to step way back. So all of our mental activity tends to happen right up here in the front, the prefrontal cortex. And in order to help that to stop, we step way back, almost like stepping out the back door of our skull. And when you step way back here, you'll look out at life and you'll see life from a different perspective. You'll see that what I like and what I dislike are in a sense irrelevant. And as you let this go, instead of feeling that pressure of grasping around being right, the mind starts to expand, the heart opens more fully, and there's just this sense of seeing life. Seeing it for how it is. I was outside this morning. I love it. This is January 4th in Colorado. I was outside this morning meditating. It was so warm out. It's just like out just basking in the sun in Colorado, meditating. And what's nice about when you meditate outside is you hear the sound of the birds. You hear this fundamental sense of aliveness. Your mind starts to open into the hugeness of the sky. Your heart sees this beauty all about the earth. And it's this wondrous gift when we can look out at life and not have any judgment. And I can tell you, I was out hiking today, and sometimes on a trail you'll see someone walking and they'll have like such a seriousness in their head and their eyes. They'll be dripping in their jaw. And then the next person you might see might be just like a carefree hippie, just wearing no shoes, just, wandering around, just seeing the beauty of the life. And if there's a choice here between being overly lost in seriousness or being the carefree hippie, I'm choosing the carefree hippie any day of the week. Any day of the week. And the beautiful thing is that I did this thing today, whereas I go off into the woods, and there's this area that has a lot of boulders, so I'll climb up these boulders, and super dangerous. I'm wearing like my they're like rubber rain boots. They're like mud boots is what they are, and not the best thing to climb in. Normally when you rock climb, you wear these little ballerina shoes that you just jam your feet into, and they give you superior traction. But I had on my just my big mudder boots, and I was climbing up these boulders. Some of them were almost like little towers, and I was just looking down, and every now and then you see someone stroll by on the trail, and you see it's the same trail, same nature, and some people are as happy as can be. Others are hyper controlling, just managing their dog with just some kind of neurotic just some freakish neurosis. I don't know what the right word is here for it, but you've seen people when they're being way too hard on their dogs. The dog's like wagging its tail and just looking to have a little fun, and the owner's trying to control the dog. Or you see a couple walk by, and the husband's trying to control the wife, or the wife's trying to control the husband. And then you see a carefree hippie walk by. Their heart is open, and they're seeing the beauty of life. They will actually look up at me and smile. Because when our heart is open, it's like all of our senses are online, and we hear with the fullness of our body. But it's funny, the people who are just serious, and they're gripping in their forehead and controlling their dog, they're always like looking down at the ground with this heaviness of being. And the great question for us is, well, where are we at here? Do we walk with an open heart in the sense of equanimity? Feeling, communing with nature, communing with life? Or are we walking, whether it's in the forest, or in the store, the marketplace, being lost in seriousness, being lost in pain, being lost in something that's happened 20 years ago? And so this is a great question for us to investigate just as we're walking about planet Earth. Can we walk about planet Earth with this open mind, open heart, open presence? This quiet sense of equanimity. With equanimity, you can see things for what they are. But when we have judgment, when we have assumption, we don't see what's actually here. We see what we want to see. I can just say the word Tucker Carlson, and some people say, "Oh, I hate that guy." Other people say, "Oh, I love him. He's the best." And we do this all day long. We play this game like the great Zen master said. To set up what you like against what you dislike is a disease of the mind. And so, there's a question that was sent in, so I'll get to this question. And if anyone else has a question, you can raise your hand or put it in the chat. Let's see if I can pull it up here. Hi, Craig. How do you gain a feeling for whether or not you are ready for something? Are you more in the only as fast as your slowest part camp? That's a funny thing to say. Or do you lean more towards going for it, even if a part of you feels like you need more time to heal, evolve, grow, etc., before taking the plunge? Okay, yeah. How do you gain a feeling for whether or not you're ready for something. Well, I'll tell you this. My whole life, I've always just jumped right in. I always feel like I'm ready for whatever. Like whatever it is, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. I'm not sitting around, saying to myself that I'm only as fast as your slowest part. And I don't care if I need more time to heal or evolve or grow before taking the plunge. We all are always growing forever here on planet Earth. We're never ready for anything on planet Earth because we don't know what that thing is going to be. We don't know what's going to happen. We don't know what it's going to be like. Or this kind of really ties into what we were speaking about with the assumptions. We just don't know. We never know how it's going to turn out. And so for me, like, if you show me a rock, a mountain, I want to climb that thing. And am I ready? No, I'm not ready. But I'm going to get up there. And I'm going to get to the top. And if I fall down, I'm going to try again. And that's how I live my life. If any of you, I want you just to imagine something with me for a moment. I want you just to think about what a vert ramp is, for skateboarding. So vert ramp, that's a half pipe. So it's a ramp, it's like you can kind of stand up here, and it's this giant U. Okay, so it's vert, like this first part, and then there's the transition. It's flat for a little bit, another transition, and then it goes up vertical again. So I can remember when I was a young boy, and I got a skateboard, and I was probably in first grade when I got a skateboard. And I skateboarded for a couple years, just on the street, and then, we start building ramps, and we just want to launch off things. And then one day I went to my Uncle Denny's house, and he said, "Hey, Craig, my backyard neighbor built one of those crazy ramps in their backyard." And I was like, "Oh yeah, I want to go check this thing out." And so I climbed up that ramp. I didn't ask anybody. I just climbed up that ramp. I put my board on the edge. And the way you do it is you put your tail right on the edge, and you have to slam that thing down. And then you're like free falling, but you're on a board, and so it's rolling. And what did I do? I got up there and I slammed that board down, and in about half a second, boom, I fell right here on my shoulder, on my elbow, on my hip, and my God, did it hurt so bad. So bad. And I had a giant bruise, like from my kneecap, up to my hip, my elbow to my shoulder, my forearm. I think I had a wrist in there on my other side where I slammed my wrist. I probably clocked my head. And then I got up there and I did it again. And I fell again. I just fell again. And I was like, dang, this thing is so hard, and it hurt so bad. So bad. Like crazy bad. Now, fortunately for me, I don't know what it is about my body, but I always felt like my bones were just made out of rubber. But the only bone I ever really broke was my skull, and that's not a good thing. That's not a good thing. But I probably cracked some ribs too. But I've never had like a legitimate cast on my body. But anyways, the energy of spiritual awakening is we go for it. We're going to walk into the unknown. We're not playing it safe. If you want to play it safe, we can be here till the end of time. So for me, I've always just jumped to the deep end of the pool. It's just how I've lived my life. And so I'll go out on a surfboard and just get destroyed. A skateboard, get destroyed. And a snowboard, get destroyed. I mean, whatever it is. Now I can skateboard just fine and snowboard just fine. Now surfing, I haven't figured that one out fully yet. But anyways, I'm going to go out there. And I'm going to keep going out there until I sort it out. And that's how I learn. That's how we grow. That's how we grow the quickest way, is through jumping right in and figuring it out. I like what Tony Robbins says. He's like, look, if you're going to make a decision, just take massive action. Massive action right out of the gates. Even if you do it wrong, you're going to figure it out very quickly. And you'll course correct. And so I encourage you, like if you have a big choice, if you have a decision, jump to the deep end of the pool. But, you jump to the deep end of the pool and there's a danger there. Like you can drown. You can get hurt. You can break your bones. You can get in, terrible, messy relationships. You can fail miserably. But the only reason it will be miserably is if you stay there. You stay there. So if you have something you want to do, if it's something true, then do it. Then do it. If we go back to that ramp, I walked away like after a bunch of times. And finally I started on the ground and tried to pump my way up. There's a way you can just start on the flat and just kind of pump back and forth. But, what I did was, I took that ramp home with me in my mind. I took it home with me in my heart. And then one day when I had enough money, I went to the lumber yard and bought all the wood. And me and my buddies, we built that ramp. And we learned how to skate vert. We learned how to skate on big transitions. And did we fall and get hurt? Yeah, like 10,000 times. But that's the thing, is like I'm going to jump in and I'm going to give it my all. And if I fail, if the thing's true, I'm going to stick with it. And when the thing is true, it will haunt you. It'll haunt you. Because the truth always haunts us. Like the truth was like, we can't let it go. We'll have this itch and it's just like, I need to know this. I want to master whatever this aspect of life is to the best of my ability. I was just out just a couple hours ago and, I was at the ice rink. Had a wonderful day. So meditating outside and hiking and climbing, and then went to the ice rink. And the ice rink, it's funny because there's so many people who don't know how to ice skate, and they just have this look of just sheer terror. And ice skating, it's the real deal. If you fall, it's going to hurt if you're old. If you're young, you might just fall and, you get right back up again. But if you're old, you fall, like it's going to hurt. And so you see people, they get so stiff and so tight and they're doing that shuffle, and they're holding on for dear life. And because they're having a fear response. And I'm going to call this a real life fear response because, they could get hurt. They could crack their skull or break their wrist or whatever it is. But me, like, I'm going to put the skates on. And if you skated with, just your 2 feet, ice skating is pretty tough. If you ever played hockey with a stick, it's so much easier to skate with a stick because you have those 3 points of contact. When you just have those two, it's scary. And so whenever we try something new, there's going to be a fear. But on the spiritual path, our job is to face fear, to call it out, to call its bluff, to see, is this thing actually dangerous? And sometimes it is actually dangerous. But sometimes life is asking you to face the danger, whether it's, an imagined psychological danger or psychological fear, or to face the real thing. But this whole thing is like about only as fast as your slowest part. And you need more time to heal, grow, and evolve. Like if we wait on ourselves to be perfect, like a lot of times, like people who have issues with perfection, they want to be perfect first before they step into any role where they're seen. And I had my dear friend Father John from Nigeria over the other day, and what did he say? He said this beautiful thing. Like he was hanging out with us having breakfast, and he said he's here to do God's will. And he said he knows he will never do God's will perfectly because he's a human. And he said, if we had to wait for the perfect human to come along, we'd be waiting forever. It's like there'd be no priests. There'd be no priests, no teachers, no support, no nurses, no anything. And so here on planet Earth, I like my philosophy is we show up. We do our best. We call upon the grace of God to move through us, to act through us, to speak through us. And we do our best. And we let go of the results, because the funny thing about life is sometimes the will of God is that you'll have great success. Other times, God will literally engineer failure for you. It's like that's the matrix we live in. Sometimes our Creator, our Father, our Mother, will engineer failure for us. And how failure is just hardwired into life. It's called death. It's called death. It's called being a baby. You'll fail. You'll fail to walk. You'll fail to go potty on the pot. As a young kid, you'll fail to know everything in school. Like, I've had a lot of people show up in my office before, and they'll go back in time to when they were in third grade and a teacher yelling at them for not knowing how to do the math or whatever it is. And they're still judging themselves as wrong and incompetent. I'm just like, man, you were in the third grade. Like, you're in the fifth grade. You were in the eighth grade. Like, forgive yourself. You're not supposed to know. Like, we're always growing. As adults, we're always failing. Always failing. How my mom's 80, and I can't tell you how many times I've taught her how to copy and paste. It's just like, Mom, here's the button for copy and paste. It's a right click. She's like, oh, what? It's like a right click, Mom. It's a right click. Right click. You copy, then you paste it. She can't do it. She's always sending me stuff that, like blank emails. She's like, oh, I saw this thing. Let me share this link with you. And then no link. No link. It's just like we are always failing. Always failing. And if we know that, if we can have humility about it, it's no big deal. It's called just being human. But when we expect perfection, when we're trying to do something new, it's like it just won't come. And if it does, well, it's, we're either lucky or that's God's grace. Sometimes God just gives us one. I can remember the first time I played rugby. I was in college, and I went out to this field. Saw all these giant guys. They threw the ball to me, and I ran and whatever and got a goal, a touchdown. I don't even know how you play rugby, but they threw that thing to me, and I took it, and I scored right away. And I was like, oh my God, like I'm so good at rugby. And like 2 minutes later, the same play, threw the ball to me, 10 guys tackled me. I walked off that field like, oh my God, I'm in so much pain. I'm never going to do this again. The rugby was not my truth. Rugby was not my truth. Not my truth. But skateboard is like, no, I wanted to learn how to skate vert. I wanted. It was in my heart. It was in my heart. So anyways, okay, let's hear from Wesley here. Hey, Wesley, are you here? Okay, I'm not hearing him. So Wes, I keep asking you to unmute, but maybe we lost you here. Let's see. Does anyone have anything? Let me check the chat. Okay, here's what Kyle says. I see the merit of non-dual teaching, that if I am open now, I am awake. However, I also see that I'm slowly making progress in my healing journey towards an equilibrium, in my mind-body. I make little steps weekly and big steps annually. Yeah. I mean, Kyle, you're bringing forth just a basic truth here, my friend. A basic truth that, and this is a great argument that's happened in the Soto tradition in Zen versus the Rinzai tradition in Zen. One is sudden awakening and the other is gradual awakening. And of course, the answer is both are true. Both are true. But our mind always looks at, well, am I awake or am I asleep? Like it wants to look at this thing dualistically, or as awakening like this slow, gradual process. And of course, both are true. We can wake up just like that. We can go to sleep just like that. As soon as you believe a false thought, you can put yourself right back to sleep. But here in this world, in this evolutionary world, you'll find that you'll open up to vast, non-dual states of freedom. And we're going to have a retreat here, up in Washington State. And sometimes on retreat, it's like, boom, we wake up and you see the innate beauty and radiance of all of life. And then when we're driving home or you get back, to your house and your girlfriend or your partner or your wife or whoever's waiting there for you, they say, hey, you forgot to do the dishes. I can't believe you. You've ignored me this whole time. I texted you. Your phone was off. This isn't fair. And then we re-engage with an argument. And then we're asleep again. But as we grow in spiritual maturity, when we grow in emotional intelligence, when we grow in compassion, as we wake up and we have these qualities within our humanity, qualities of maturity, of great compassion, of understanding, we come home and we say, oh, I'm so sorry. How about I do the dishes for the next 2 months to make up for it? To make up for it. And I love you so much. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. And I love you. And as we do this, as we respond in this way, then we're not playing the I got it, I lost it game. We see that openness is a direct experience. It's a choice. But it's also a lifestyle. A lifestyle where we choose to be open out of love all the time. And any time we see aspects of our psyche shutting down, we investigate that. We do our work. Because we know when we do our psychological work, when we do our healing work, it's supporting this greater sense of being open always. And so thank you, Kyle. Lauren writes, what are some good inquiry questions for shadow work, specifically for uncovering repressed emotions? I mean, just a great question. If we're asking about repressed emotions, a great question is just, what am I feeling now? And if you ask yourself that over and over again for 5 minutes, and there's probably a way that we can do this on our iPhone. If you just go to the audio memos, I think is what they call it, and you record yourself. What are you feeling now? What are you feeling now? What are you feeling now? And so if you record yourself just asking this question, what are you feeling now, for, let's say, 3 minutes with some space in between there to respond. The first time you answer the question will be the feelings that are on the surface. But as you continue to respond to the question, you'll notice yourself going deeper and deeper into your psyche. And in this depth, you'll find, oh, there's some things here that are buried. And they're beginning to come forward. So it can be the most basic question. Like, shadow work doesn't have to be complicated in any way. Oftentimes, just with a repeating question, the shadow will come out. Sometimes, if we look into a place where we normally don't feel, so a lot of people will kind of feel in their upper chest and above. But if you ask, like, what am I feeling in my belly now? What am I feeling in the hara? Like, at first, the hara is an interesting chakra because it's so deep in the body. It's a place where we tend to repress our greatest fears. Down in the hara and in the pelvis and the hips. And if you ask that question over and over again, you might realize, oh, there's a lot of anger here, there's a lot of rage, or there's great fear. You know, I had a question I worked with a long time ago, a shadow work question, which was, what do you know that you don't want to know? Like, what do you know that you don't want to know? What do you know that you actively hide from yourself? What do you know that you actively hide from yourself? And so many of us, we have addictions, or we have issues with rage, or we have a great fear, or there's just a sadness within us. Like, we know that we love our Father, but we try to avoid this through dismissing Him, or through ignoring Him, or not acknowledging Him, or through blaming Him. Again, I'm just using the Father as an example. What do you know that you don't want to know? What do you know that you hide from yourself? And oftentimes with shadow work, it requires just longer periods of time in silence, longer periods of time alone. And a lot of people, they do inquiry work just in their head, from their mind to their mind, but we want to do inquiry in the body. Deep in the body, deep in the heart, deep in the belly. Because you'll see that your body holds on to great truths from great, places of suffering and pain. And if you, especially with shadows, I invite you just to notice, like, sometimes with shadows, people will, like, they'll ask a question, they'll just, oh boy, I'm so tired. They'll just start to get tired, and that's a sign that there's a shadow here. Or they'll start to get a little anxious, be like, I'm done with this practice, and they'll quit the inquiry practice before the time's up. So it's good to give yourself, 15 minutes or 20 minutes, a half hour, if you want to go deep. And so you might ask the question for 5, 10, 15 minutes. But then eventually you start feeling these feelings start to unravel. So they might begin feeling numb or dead or heavy. But you give them more time. And the feelings start to come alive. It starts to feel this unease within you. And with shadow work, we want to be really curious. Like, why am I feeling all this anxiety all of a sudden? What is this about? And so whatever feeling begins to come forward, if it's a repressed feeling, invite that feeling to tell you more. Tell me more. What? Tell me more about this anger. Tell me more about this sadness. Tell me more about this heartache. I can remember I was with a woman once, and it was quite interesting. We were just having lunch together. We were 2 teachers, like high school teachers. And she's sitting there, and we were just talking, and just out of nowhere, like, she looks at me, she almost dropped her spoon, like her face turned pale, and then she lit up all red. And she said, oh my God, like, the neighbor came over and, had abused her body when she was just a little kindergartner. And it just all came to her just as we were just hanging out, having a lovely lunch. I don't know what it was, but we were just talking, and all of a sudden the shadow revealed itself. And you'll find this on the path. And so if anything reveals itself, so I stopped, and I gave her lots of time and lots of space, and I shut my mouth and I just listened. And she started grieving and emoting. And then after being with me, and I had to get back to teaching. She had a break, and she just went for a walk on the river trail and just let the old memories come, let them unravel, let them release. And then later she was just like shocked. She was like, oh my gosh, like I had no idea that was within me. And sometimes that's how shadow work is we've done such a good job of repressing something within us. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, this thing comes forward. But with an inquiry question like, what do you know that you don't want to know? What am I hiding? What truths am I hiding from myself? What experiences am I hiding from myself? What feelings am I hiding from myself? And we ask this question, and we're quiet, and we're willing just to sit and to open. And what's important with shadow work is you bring your consciousness down into your heart, down into your belly, and simply feel. But if we're thinking, oftentimes we'll try to grasp at the thing. And sometimes when we're grasping, we'll make things up, or we'll just get lost in thoughts or beliefs. And the invitation here is to sit deeply with an open heart. This deep sense of courage that says, I'm willing to feel. And so you might even have a little prayer that you say to yourself, like, I'm willing to see the truth. I'm willing to sit and to feel what's here. And with emotions, you'll see that they are layered. On the surface will be one thought, one memory. Underneath it, it might be some deep, like amorphous pain. You go down even further and you see, oh my gosh, there is tremendous rage here. There's a fire here. And you keep opening, and then all of a sudden there's just fire. And it's like, oh, what is this? And you start to realize, oh, that emotion, it's burnt up. And now I'm left just feeling this fire, just feeling this intensity, this hugeness of being, this unbounded spirit. And so I encourage you to play with this and see how it goes. Okay. With that, I think let's see here. Excuse me. I'm going to look at the next question here. This is from Wesley. I notice as I've been exploring more Christian. I notice as I have been exploring more Christian walk. Sometimes there is great peace and comfort in Scripture, in turning to Jesus, going to church and Mass and prayer, etc. Sometimes, however, holding any posture or relational orientation to Jesus, to God, to anyone or anything causes stress. Anything short of total surrender to the void, the totality, feels restrictive. Do you have any thoughts? It's a question about relationship to God personally versus surrendering to any internal shape or orientation. Yeah, this is a beautiful question, Wesley. Thank you for this. So what I found is on the path, I need both. Me personally, I need both. We're all humans and we're relational creatures. And I want to have a deep relationship with God. I call upon Jesus and I feel this sweet presence of love. I call upon God the Father and I feel this quiet depth. I call upon Mary and I feel her tender innocence and compassion. And as a relational creature, I want to know God personally. I want to experience God personally all the time. Especially if I'm having a hard day, a difficult moment, and I want some support, I'll call on Jesus. I'll call on Mary, call upon the great ones. And that's always served me really well. But also there's been times on the path where it feels like, for me, it doesn't necessarily feel like a restriction. Let me see if I can put it into different words. It feels as if God is calling me to know myself as God. And all of us here on planet Earth, we have this deep craving to know God as the one without a second, to know God as your very own heart, as the radiance of your body, as the radiance of the sky, the radiance of the earth, to know God in everyone and everything, the ground, the sky, the depth of silence, even the busyness of life. And so, Wes, I'm going to invite you just to follow your truth. To follow your truth. Non-dual awakening is this sense of total surrender to what is. Total surrender to what is. And so, of course, let's do that in every moment of our life. A total surrender to what is. You can't go wrong with that. You can't go wrong with that. But if you're having trouble surrendering, if you're having trouble with your head, if you're having trouble with your emotional nature, if you have crazy, persistent thoughts, which most of us here have here on planet Earth, with this mind that's just so busy, if we've had jaded relationships, it can be helpful to have a friend in Jesus. It it could be helpful to pray, saying, God, will you be here with me? And invite the grace of God to flow into us. But I can remember, I had a couple years in my life where it was as if God disappeared. God the Father, God the Mother, all the archangels, the masters. It was like God didn't exist. But in the place, say, of this personal God, was this recognition of this vast non-dual radiance in everyone and everything, the fabric of my mind, the fabric of life. And it was confusing for me because I've always had a great relationship with God. But this was like there could be no God. There was no thing other than this. Than this. I don't even want to say this one because it's just like all is this. And in one sense, it was so beautiful and so full and so total. In another sense, it was a little bit dry. It felt a little bit dry and dead. And of course, it's still here this day. But sometimes God will take like this back seat and say, no, I want you, Wes, just to realize this fullness that you are, that life is, the one without a second, throughout all of creation, throughout all experience, the good, the bad, the ugly, to see it as all this one essence. And God will strategically remove herself so that we can realize this. And other times you'll see that God's your best friend. I found that just for my personal humanity, my personal humanity needs to talk to God. But like if we just feel into my hara, the hara is just life itself. Doesn't need to talk to God at all. It's just like, I am life. Who's talking to who? But in my humanity, in my childlike nature, in my adult nature, I look at Jesus as an inspiration. I look at the Buddha as an inspiration. And I talk to Jesus. I talk to Mary. I talk to the great ones. And they talk back. The way they talk back is not so much with words, but they talk with this quality of radiance, this quality of grace, this sweetness, this intimacy, this connectivity. And just on a human level, I find this so healing, especially if I'm having a tough day. And that happens here on planet Earth. Sometimes we have a tough day. And if I'm having a tough day, just like stepping into the vast impersonal void, it works. But often, like, my heart will just still ache for some warmth or some connection with God. But even if I don't pray and I just keep opening, whatever that pain is, it eventually passes. It all like dissolves and even composts itself back into the very fabric of the ever-present God, which is everywhere and everything. And so I'm just going to look at this question one more time. Yeah, I mean, Wes, you're right. Like sometimes there's great peace and comfort in Scripture and turning to Jesus, going to Mass and prayer. And yeah, you're right. Just other times, God's saying, you be all there is now. You surrender totally and completely, without any reservation, without any intermediary. And so let us end tonight. We say, Gate, Gate, Gate. Paragate, Parasamgate. Bodhi, Svaha. It's open, open, open. We open to the primordial essence of all of life. We know this as the field, the fabric of all that is. One grand, immense, unified essence. And so much love to each of you, deep bow respect. See y'all next time. Bye for now.